What would happen if I told you that Mercedes, the team that many already ruled out for the new era of F1, has left the entire paddock speechless in just one day of secret testing in Barcelona? Have they really found a loophole in the regulations that gives them an unprecedented technical advantage? Stay, because what happened in Spain could completely change the balance of power in Formula One in 2026. Many believe that the Brackley team was still trying to get out of the technical hole into which it fell after the failure of the zero-pod concept in 2022. There was talk of a team in reconstruction which was betting on the long term with young talents like Kimi Antonelli, and which, at least on paper, was not among the favorites to start dominating in 2026. But what happened on that first day of private testing was more than just a surprise. It was a declaration of intentions. Mercedes was not only the team that spent the most time on the track that day. He was also the first to go out to ride, the one who made the fewest mistakes, and the only one who showed such a balanced combination of speed, reliability, and consistency from minute one. Kimi Antonelli, barely 18 years old, was in charge of opening the day at 9 o'clock sharp. He did not make installation laps or slow reconnaissance laps. His first stint was already a demonstration of confidence, more than 50 laps without mechanical setbacks, with a pace that placed him at the top of the timetable, and most importantly, without making a single mistake. In the afternoon, George Russell took over with an almost surgical execution. He ran an additional 95 laps, reduced the team's reference time to an impressive 1 minute and 18.696 seconds, and made it clear that Antonelli's performance was no coincidence. Between them, they accumulated 151 laps, more than 700 kilometers, a figure that not only doubles the distance of a Grand Prix at the Circuit de Catalunya, but also represents a milestone compared to any previous technical debut. To put it in perspective, in the first tests of the hybrid era in 2014, Mercedes completed that same number of laps, but in 4 full days. Red Bull, on the other hand, did not even reach 25. The difference this time was not only quantitative, but qualitative. The W17, the new Mercedes car, seemed to be born well, as engineers often say. There was no trace of vibration, no aerodynamic bounce, no brake lockups or signs of instability. It was a car that, at least in its initial form, conveyed a natural confidence to both the driver and the outside observer. And that, in Formula One, is pure gold. The most surprising thing was the control with which Mercedes approached this day. Unlike Red Bull, which also completed many laps but hinted at certain adjustments to its power unit, Mercedes seemed to operate with a millimeter-planned roadmap. Each stint had a purpose, each adjustment generated incremental improvements, and the transition between drivers was seamless. There were no red flags, no pauses due to technical failures, just efficiency. In a test where no one knew for sure what the others were testing, Mercedes chose not to hide. And that is revealing. Because when a team has doubts, it tests, corrects, reconfigures. But when a team knows it has something strong on its hands, it focuses on fine-tuning, not hiding. That was exactly what Mercedes did in Barcelona. And so, without official announcements, without promotional videos, without bombastic statements, Mercedes returned to the center of the scene. Not with words, but with data. Not with promises, but with returns. And he did it in silence. Because sometimes silence is the most powerful way to scream that it's one thing to make an impression in the headlines with isolated time. It is quite another to sustain constant performance during a full day of testing without cracks, without drama, without errors. Mercedes not only caught eyes for the volume of laps, he also did it because of how those laps developed. Because behind the number 151, there is no coincidence. There is methodology. There is surgical preparation. And above all, there is a trust that cannot be simulated. What we saw on that first day was a masterclass in how to run a preseason test. Mercedes did not come to Barcelona to look for answers. He came to validate the ones he already had. From a first stint with Antonelli to the last with Russell, each lap seemed designed to build a detailed map of the W17's behavior. And the most impressive thing? There were almost no deviations, errors, or improvised changes. That, on a brand new car, is extremely unusual. George Russell's reference time, 1 minute and 18.696 seconds, was enough to place him just half a second behind the best time of the day, set by Isaac Hadjar in the Red Bull RB22. But there's one detail the numbers don't immediately reveal. Mercedes wasn't using its most aggressive engine modes, nor was it running pure qualifying simulations. Everything indicates that the approach was one of data accumulation and consistency evaluation in long batches. Even so, they were at the level of a Red Bull that was testing maximum performance settings. That tells us about two things. First, from the energy efficiency of the new hybrid system developed by Mercedes' high-performance powertrains, which seems to have been born with a very healthy balance between electrical deployment and thermal delivery. And second, a chassis architecture that adapts naturally to the new tires, to the new levels of downforce, and to the demands of a power unit that is now 50% electric. Engineers know that this kind of efficiency is not built with patches or last-minute adjustments. It has been designed since the genesis of the single-seater. Therefore, the fact that both drivers, a veteran like Russell and a rookie like Antonelli, have reported similar sensations is another indicator that the W17 has an intrinsic basis of balance, something that Mercedes has not achieved since 2020. Antonelli, after getting out of the car, spoke with a calm that is only gained when things work. The car feels natural. The team did an excellent job, and the drivability, which was our big unknown, is solid. There are many things to improve, but we are starting from a very positive place. He didn't mention rebounds. He didn't talk about oversteer. There were no complaints about degradation or an unpredictable hybrid system. Quite the opposite. Control was the key word. Russell, for his part, did not give in to the euphoria, but his statements reflected subtle satisfaction. It was a solid day. I was surprised by how good the car felt at the end of a long stint. We still don't know how the power modes compare between teams, but we've definitely made a good step since last year. Those types of comments are not made lightly, especially coming from a pilot who experienced firsthand the suffering of the W13 and W14. And if we go to the technical detail, it is essential to highlight what did not happen. There were no recurring stalls when braking, no overheating peaks, or drops in performance after laps 20 or 30. The car maintained a constant average pace in its long runs, with oscillations of less than 0.3 seconds per lap during more than half an hour of running. That's a sign of excellent thermal and aerodynamic balance. Even more so when other teams, such as Ferrari or Audi, began to show signs of instability after lap 15. Additionally, Mercedes' level of operational control during the day was another layer of sophistication. The simulated pit stops were executed smoothly. The internal but non-public communications were filtered as extremely clean and structured, and the technical team did not need to make drastic modifications to the setup between the morning and the afternoon. That speaks of a predictable car. And in Formula One, well-managed predictability is the true synonym of competitiveness. What surprised some observers most was Mercedes' ability to operate without hesitation. While other teams had to deal with height adjustments, tire pressure changes, or even energy management software resets, Mercedes remained oblivious to the chaos. Not even Red Bull showed that kind of fluidity on the first day of testing. In short, what happened in Barcelona was not just a good day. It was a public, if unofficial, validation that Mercedes not only survived the most drastic regulation change since 2014, it could also have turned it into an advantage, and that, if confirmed in the coming weeks, will force the rest of the paddock to react faster than they expected. In Formula One, every great technical performance raises an inevitable question. Is it pure merit, or is there something more behind it? And when that performance comes from a team like Mercedes, with a history of technical ingenuity bordering on the controversial, suspicions quickly arise. This is how the story of the thermal compression trick was born. An innovation so sophisticated and, at the same time, so dangerous for competitive balance that has already set off alarms inside and outside the paddock. The key is in a phrase that seems innocent, but that represents a crack in the 2026 technical regulations. Article C.5.4.3 of the FIA establishes the following. No engine cylinder can have a geometric compression ratio greater than 16.0. But here comes the twist. The procedure to measure this value will be executed at room temperature. What if the engine, when cold, complies perfectly, but when it reaches operating temperatures close to 1000 degrees Celsius, its internal behavior completely changes? That is exactly what, according to paddock sources, Mercedes has achieved. Design pistons and connecting rods with intended thermal expansion properties. Materials such as titanium alloys treated with plasma nitriding, which when cold maintain legal dimensions, but when heated, increase the combustion chamber in a calculated manner. This allows, under racing conditions, the engine to operate with compression ratios close to 18:1, exceeding the official limit without technically violating it. The practical result of this maneuver cannot be underestimated. A higher compression ratio implies a more efficient combustion process. In simple terms, it means more power extracted from the same volume of air-fuel mixture. Independent engineers estimate that this advantage could mean between 12 and 15 additional horsepower. It may not seem like much on paper, but in Formula One that can translate into up to 4/10 per lap. In a championship as tight as the one projected for 2026, that is not an improvement, it's a competitive abyss. In a sport where every tenth of a second costs millions, what Mercedes has done in Barcelona is not just a demonstration of technical strength. It is a calculated maneuver, a move that could completely change the course of the 2026 championship. We are not talking about a simple good start. We are witnessing a possible turning point in the balance of power within Formula One. Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.